Today, I'm really happy. I get to have a really special guest as he's been going through a difficult process. What the heck happened to you? What's been going on? And what's the future looking like for you?
December 5th, sore throat. December 12th, I got a fever. I knew I was in trouble when they gave me fentanyl. I gave myself my own back massage because that, from there to there, was my back.
What do you have to share with us about resiliency and about overcoming obstacles given what you've been through?
What I found in ICU was that nature of time changed.
It's interesting. I found the solution. Well, it's definitely a fascinating industry. Stick around because you're the guy who keeps your finger on the pulse for all of us.
Now I'm fully capable, fully functional and beyond.
Beautiful. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cupid's Coach podcast. I'm your host, Julie Ferman, inviting you, like always, to transform me to we through your own process of doing dating better. And today, I'm really happy. I get to have a really special guest. He's a good friend of mine. He's been my colleague for a long, long time. His name is Mark Brooks. His company is Cortland Brooks. He knows as much about the dating industry as any living being on the planet. Welcome to the show, Mark Brooks.
Thank you, Julie. Great to be here. In fact, it's great to be anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know many people who've been through more than you have, and we're going to be talking about all that. But first off, you are a fascinating guy. First, you started at Harvard Business School, London School of Economics, political science with a degree in behavioral science. And there was college years before that, right? Where were you in college?
Just north of London, Hertfordshire University. It was doing engineering management of all things.
What is online dating except for a whole lot of engineering? And I love that you have a degree in behavioral science, and here you are, the guy who at every single dating industry conference that I've been to in the last 20, maybe 25 years, you've been the one who launches each conference talking about the state of the internet dating world, right? That's always what you talk about, and it's expanded into matchmaking and everything else. So goodness gracious, how did you get inspired to even study this?
I moved to Silicon Valley. I think it was 1998. And I couldn't find a way to meet people that was very easy. I figured, okay, I'm just going to start a club. So I started an adventure club in Silicon Valley, and people talked to each other, and it grew to 3,600 members. And I just found that wonderfully joyful experience. And then a strange thing happened. People started getting married. It was largely single, but people started getting married. And I got invitations to weddings. And it just opened my eyes. I was like, this is more fun than selling non-contact laser-based metrology systems, which is what I was doing at the time. And you know what happened is one of the couples got divorced. And that kind of upset me because, like, was I responsible? They had a kid and they got divorced. And, I ran the club for many, many years. And I thought maybe there's a better way. Maybe I should really try and get my head around this. Maybe there is an engineering problem to solve.
Fascinating. So tell me how you met your wife. That's the part I know. You have these beautiful daughters. And I don't know, I think who they look more like, you or your wife, but I love seeing the photos. How did you two meet? Was it through the dating industry?
One step removed. We actually met as a consequence of me being in Prague for the European Internet Dating Conference in 2005. I rocked up to Prague and my buddy who ran the conference said, no, you've got to stick around. Don't just go after the conference. Why? I was like, my business is all in the USA. Why do I need to be in Prague? And he said, no. The girls are hot. I was like, okay. And I've got a penthouse. Okay, I'm in. So he threw some parties. He called them upadkovi parties, which is a very old-fashioned Czech term, meaning a kind of a homeless rich person somehow. And it's like old Czech. So if you ever mention upadkovi to a Czech person, they'll generally giggle and think that's a bit strange. Certainly calling it something an upadkovi party was quite distinctive. So he would round people up and invite them to his party, and we had a couple of really nice parties. And Arena came to one of these parties, a friend of a friend, and I was standing on the balcony, and she walked onto the balcony and said in Czech, looking over Prague, it was beautiful, right in Prague 1, looking exactly the best place to have such a wonderful view. And she said in Czech, does anybody here speak Czech? And I was surrounded by Czech guys, and there's something about Czech guys that are assertive, and in this case they were quite passive, and so I was the only one that, as soon as she said that, I remember thinking, there's no way I'm going to let this chick speak another word of Czech. It's exactly to a letter what I thought in my head. And I also thought, she's nice, I'd like to talk to her, but I'm not going to let her speak any more Czech. So I went straight up to her and said, hello, I'm Mark. And then we just completely hit it off. And we've got the same cheeky sense of humor. So never look back.
And how good was her English back then?
Well, I thought it was better than it really was. She admits to me that she would let me talk and then just nod and agree. I was like, she actually had good English, but I spoke a bit too quickly.
She's always been delightful and easy to talk with. So I just assumed that her English was good when she first met you, but
It
sounds
was
like
good.
she's learned a lot along the way.
Yes, indeed. Yes, she teaches me English now. She corrects me. She runs Online Personals Watch and is the editor for it. So she dreams in English now. So that's the real delineation for someone being fluent.
And what about the girls? What do they speak?
No Czech, that's for sure. It's a very complex language. They can understand their grandparents, but they can't speak back to them.
Wow.
Yeah, they speak Maltese than they do Czech.
Yeah, I just met somebody the other day who lives in Malta, and that's where you live most of the time, but you're in Dubai a lot. You travel around. So your homes are Malta, Dubai, and London probably, and New York.
I've actually been glued to Dubai since December because of my crazy illness. I'm married to my surgeon for a while. Yeah, normally we split our time between Dubai, Malta, and we're still deciding New York, California, but that's the split. USA a little bit, Malta more, and for me, Dubai, the vast majority right now, but that's hopefully changing in 3 weeks' time when I'm getting let out for good behavior.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons I wanted to have Mark on the show is because I have been watching as he's been going through an enormous, huge, difficult process health-wise, and I thought maybe it would be a great idea for you to tell us a little bit about resiliency and how the heck you keep your spirits up over a long journey like this. So give us the bottom line. What the heck happened to you? What's been going on? And what's the future looking like for you?
Well, future's looking good, but let me back up. So I flew from Malta to England on December 4th, and I landed in England. Everything was fine. December 5th, I hit the gym. Had a bit of a sore throat. Actually, it was quite a bad sore throat after the gym. I got out of the gym, and I'd done quite a big set. It was an hour and a quarter, 11.3 tons. I track it all. I got out of the gym, and I got quite a bad sore throat. You know, gestation period's like 3 to 5 days. I would have caught this sore throat in Malta for sure. I thought it was a consequence of the gym, but no, it takes 3 to 5 days for a sore throat to act up. So December 5th, sore throat. December 10th, sore arm. The throat didn't go away. I got a sore arm. I know this because I was playing pool with my buddy and he tells me that you were rubbing your arm on December 10th. It's like, okay, I guess I remember that. December 12th, I got a fever and I hit it with NyQuil and went to sleep at London Heathrow Airport. 13 hours I slept and I woke up, no fever. But my arm, my left arm that was a bit sore, had gone entirely, like I couldn't use it. It was completely out of action. I thought, no worries, not sure what it is, but I'm going to fly to Dubai anyway. So I grabbed the bag, jumped on the plane, couldn't use the arm, managed to maneuver around. Thankfully, I just had the carry-on. December 13th, I was excited. I landed in Dubai and I stayed up rather late. I landed at midnight and stayed up late to have my favorite shrimp burrito. Like 1 o'clock in the morning, shrimp burrito. I stayed up until 3 or 4 o'clock and this damn arm would not subside. It was starting to hurt. So I took some painkillers and went to sleep for 3-4 hours and woke up. I thought, no, I do need to see a doctor. So I called the doctor. He came in and said, nope, it's fractured arm, but if it acts up, go to Al Zahra Hospital. So I got to the evening. I started puking up like a storm, which I haven't done in literally 26 years. I've got a cast iron gut, thankfully. But this time there was an exception. I just thought, that is really unlucky. I've got a sore arm and I've got food poisoning. But that's how unlucky is that? And then I get to 9 o'clock at night and I'm bouncing around this apartment. Don't know where to put myself, loaded on painkillers. And then I thought, my decision-making capability is becoming a little less than I'm used to. You know what? I'm going to make one good decision. That decision is I'm going to go and try out the hospital because I want to see what it's like for my daughters. If ever there's any problem, this is the perfect excuse to go and insist on spending a night in hospital. I have never spent a night in hospital. That's literally what got me over the fence, thankfully, because if I'd gone to bed, I probably wouldn't have got out of bed. Like 2 or 3 hours away from the window closing on this. Luckily, I scooped myself up, managed to get into a taxi, got to Al Zahra. I was hypotensive. Guts were just, they just didn't want to stay together. And so the blood pressure was plummeting and the arm was really sore. So I went in, I thought I'll ham it up. I'll act up a bit so I make sure I'm going to insist on one night in the hospital. And so I'm a little go bag. I said, I really should check in. I should have a night in the hospital. They're nodding. They took me through. And then I knew I was in trouble when they gave me fentanyl. You do not get fentanyl in Dubai unless you're in trouble. This is the top tier opioid. And they gave me fentanyl. And I remember thinking it's not working. And then my memory lapsed from 20 minutes onwards. Couldn't remember a thing. And I'd given them permission to operate on me, basically. They thought it was compartment syndrome, but it was in fact necrotizing fasciitis, which is otherwise known as flesh-eating disease, which led to muscle necrosis. The flesh-eating disease I could have handled, but the muscle necrosis and the multi-organ failure, that was a bitch, I must say. 50% mortality. Normally it's 20% mortality with necrotizing fasciitis. But for some reason, I've generally got a very good immune system, but I got somehow beaten up with this muscle necrosis. So I lost my brachialis, my pronator, my flexor, a good portion of my triceps. And that's over the course of, I was going to insist on 1 night in hospital. I got out 25 nights later. So it's been 9 weeks in hospital in the last 8 months, and I've just had operation 24.
24 operations.
24 operations at this stage.
And at one
Just
point,
had
I
operation
saw
24.
like a complete and total bionic. Do you have a bionic arm now?
No, I was totally kidding. That was April 1st. I said that
Oh, I wondered, how does it look so normal? But there's
No,
like
there it is. So basically,
unbelievable, unbelievable.
what's most interesting is I'm one of the few people in the world,
You
probably
look
one of the
great.
only ones, I give myself my own back massage, because that, from there to there, was my back. And the latimus dorsi underneath it was moved over from my back. It got a scar from here all the way across to the center of the back. So my very creative, because I was like Popeye, I was like very little muscle. I was down to 2/3 here because I had to take out the brachialis and all the skin was gone. So they moved the latimus dorsi from my back along with a tendon to rebuild the tendon and rebuild the muscle. But the end result of that is 2 things. Number 1, if I press right here, I feel it on my back. I do not feel my arm. I feel the back all the way across
Your
the back.
back
It
looks
feels
like
like a
bloody
big...
hell right now, doesn't it?
No, it's fine. It's just one scar going across. It's fine. But they took out as
Unbelievable.
much as they could to close it up. The other thing is, which is rather useful, I was told that I had to be very careful with skin cancer, and I had to keep an eye on a mole on my back. It's a lot easier now because it's right there. I can see it. So good.
It's just been remarkable watching what's been going on with you. And my question to you is about resiliency. You've been through the depths of despair. This thing could have killed you. I saw the expressions on your wife's face and your
Yeah.
kids being around. I mean, what do you have to share with us about resiliency and about overcoming obstacles given what you've been through?
So what I found in ICU was that nature of time changed. You get driven into the seconds. You have to survive in seconds and the minutes. And so what that really looks like is I couldn't sleep for more than 45 minutes because I couldn't breathe very well. It was multi-organ failure. I was just dried out. The kidneys were shutting down. I couldn't drink enough, but it didn't feel that bad. The thing that really annoyed me was waking up after sheer exhaustion would knock me out. I'd wake up and I would see 2 things which annoyed the hell out of me. The TV, every time I woke up, I had completely forgotten where I was every single time. So I'd wake up and I'd see this in like blackness open up, and it was the TV every time. I thought I was in a black hole. So I was like, oh, where am I? Oh my God, I'm in a hospital. Now I'd remember. And then I'd look over to the corner of the room, and for some reason they had this like needle cabinet, and a picture on the cabinet was of somebody holding a needle and pricking themselves with the needle. So it was like a double, like, oh my God, I'm in the hospital. Oh God, there's a needle. Like every time. That was a real horror show. That was a real test.
Take down that picture of the needle.
I tried to.
Wake up to that.
I tried to peel it off, but it wouldn't peel off. I thought it might be an overstep, but I didn't care. I tried to peel the thing off. It was horrible. But what I found was you have to take the fight into the seconds. You have to take the fight into the minutes. You live minute to minute. That's where the battle is won. So the nature of time has interminably changed for me. The other thing is stoicism is your friend. It's very easy to start feeling sorry for yourself, but you cannot, because at the end of the day, it just is. This is the mantra I had in my mind. And stoicism has been my friend in the past, but now it's bedfellows. I mean, it just is the mantra that I had in my mind constantly, and just lived second to second, minute to minute. And I knew I had a vision of where I get to with the support of my family and friends. And there was no other concept. You know, it was 50-50 mortality, but I had absolutely precisely zero concept of that. There was absolutely no doubt in my mind that I was going to coast through it. And I did. I didn't coast through it, but I took the fight into the minutes. And when you break it down, it's a coast.
I really appreciate your perspective, Mark. The other thing that kept coming into my mind as I was thinking about you going through this is you're a tech guy. You're typing all the time. You lost access to your left arm.
I've got 2 typing fingers. This one is no good. I can't bend it. I never type with that anyway. This one is completely gone because I lost the flexor muscles, so I can't do that. This one miraculously is coming back, but I can't type with it because I can't feel it. It's completely numb. I got 2 good typing fingers. How many fingers do you need to type?
Oh, you are. Even in the midst of it, I would still get messages from Cortland Brooks, but of course that's Serena, your wife, was putting the messages out. And so unless people were following you closely, they would think everything was normal in your world.
I was typing. I was from right out of, as soon as I got out of ICU. I used voice a a lot more. So the dictation is very good
Yeah.
on Apple. That was really priceless. But I was on the phone and then onto the laptop. After 2 weeks, I was fully, the weird thing from all of this, I've had some very good clients that have stuck with me. I've been operational because sitting in hospital, there's not an awful lot to do. I kept up with it. And recently the business has boomed. It's really picked up. Now I'm fully capable, fully functional and beyond.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure you've told the story a million times, but to my audience, it's a
This
new.
is the first public time.
All right. Well, somebody
Yeah.
had to do it, and it's Julie Ferman. So you have had the bird's eye perspective of the dating industry, especially the internet dating industry, as much as anybody for these last 20 years. You watched it grow from its infancy to the way it is today. How do you even compare the way it was 20 years ago to the way it is today? Are we in better shape or worse shape? The single people who are using online dating apps today, are they in any better shape than they were 20 years ago?
From a selection standpoint, you would think so. Here's the way to think about it. The person living in the tertiary city in America, out in the country, they're in far better shape because as the big players have critical mass into the tertiary cities. So they're in far better shape. The other thing that's really an interesting effect is the effect on matchmakers, because there's never been a time in the world where more people have opened up their wallets to receive some level of assistance with their dating lives. So I always think of online dating as the great wallet opener, the great value opener for matchmakers. So despite one would think that online dating companies would have snuffed the lights out of the world of matchmaking, but the opposite is true. The opposite has happened because people can see they're getting something for a few bucks, and they can see that if the missing element is the service element, and also what I really think is the absolute core of what matchmakers do incredibly well is pre-date prep and post-date feedback. And from that post-date feedback, you get something very unique. You get to see into the minds and get to hear what they really want and how critical they are of the other person, perhaps. So they give you tremendous insights. We have none of that. So I'm very sensitive to seeing what matchmakers have, the layering in of online dating versus matchmaking. One has to consider what's the nature of the people behind online dating versus matchmaking. What I see is at the matchmakers conference, it's very charismatic. It's really a discussion about the individuals, about character and about service. But when you look at the online dating industry, it's very much about marketing, mechanization. There is the heart there, but it's buried fairly deep from the perspective of a conference. There's a lot more tactical that we discuss, and it's very male dominant, which is intriguing. Matchmaking is very female dominant, and the online dating industry has been quite male dominant for many years. I'd love for these industries to talk more. There is a meld that needs to happen, determined to bring more of, that's what LTR is about, the online conference. We have a smattering of matchmakers, seasoning things up, giving some insight to the rest of the industry, and that's one of the few places where the industries mix effectively.
It's interesting. I have developed what I call a love-hate relationship with the dating industry. I am bothered by the fact that that word is even in the sentence, the dating industry. And the reason is I have a unique perspective because you probably remember how I met my husband, Gil. I was the consumer. I was the client. I was the one who was crying in my beer in an Ethiopian restaurant on a Friday night in St. Louis, 29.9 years old, with half of one ovary left after surgery. And I wanted kids. So I will never forget what that feels like. And back then we only had personal ads, and I used to do them. I'd done them 3 times in Kansas City, and I had fun with it. I hired a dating coach. He helped set me straight, helped me understand my blind spots. And so I had a really good foundation. And then I started the DIY in events before we had meetup groups, before we had any of that. My girlfriends and I were planning really fun events in Kansas City. And I had built this incredibly large social community for people who were frustrated with dating and wanted to meet other people. So I had it all going. And then I was with Ritz-Carlton. They moved me to St. Louis, where I was from. And I was sitting in that Ethiopian restaurant and I realized, oh my God, I can't place a personal ad in the newspaper in St. Louis. I grew up here. And I was part of a beautiful prep school environment from kindergarten through 12, went to school with the Danforths and the Bushes and all the blue bloods of St. Louis. Can Julie Hardesty throw herself up on personal ads in St. Louis? What if my boyfriend put the word out? Oh my God, Julie's so pathetic. She's putting herself in the personal. I couldn't do it. That was the source of the tears. And then I saw ads for dating services. And one of them was your friend and mine, Gil Ferman, who had the Great Expectations video dating service. And there were 2 others that were blind date matchmaking companies. They were Together and Matchmaker International. And blind date matchmaking to me felt like, oh man, I've already been through 2 years of personal ads. I've had had enough surprises. How about we do video dating where there won't be as many surprises? You're only accessing people who've also paid that big fee. Of course, I didn't know there were some that were given free memberships and some who, haggled down to, $495, even though the price was $19.95 or $2,500. There was the negotiation. I didn't know anything about that. But to me, it seemed like the right solution. You know what you said earlier, Mark, is kind of interesting about matchmakers being able to provide feedback. Well, let me tell you something. When the client has paid a whopper fee, it doesn't matter if it's $500 or $5,000 or $50,000, or these days, oh gosh, we've got 150, we've got somebody charging $300,000 for matchmaking. And now I hear that there's $1 million program. Yes, that's right. You can pay $1 million and get a matchmaker to work. What do you get with that? I have no idea. But I'm the advocate for the consumer. And I'm telling you, when somebody pays you that kind of money, and it doesn't matter if it's 5,000 or 15, it doesn't. You can't say everything you want to say in feedback. You can't. And the reason is because of the threat of chargebacks. They're going to do a chargeback on their credit card because they heard something they couldn't handle. They thought they've been sold a bill of goods, whatever. They'll hire an attorney to get the money back. And that's always something that the matchmakers are afraid of. Believe me.
Yeah.
For that reason, we have to be very careful who we'll bring on as a high-level client, because there has to be trust there. And these days, I don't like to do anything more than $10,000. And the reason is because I know too much. And I know that if there's a problem with a client in the state of California where my company is based, we would handle it in small claims court. And I'm so conservative, and I dot every I across every T. I'm very cautious who I'll invite in. I never have to deal with it, but I don't want to have to worry about it. So I like short-term programs. So here's the reason I wanted to bring this up, is that I found the solution this past year in creating my boot camp, because in my boot camp, I don't promise introductions, and to people I do coaching consultations with, I don't promise introductions, and I love to make them happen. Have you heard about my mitzvah matches, the free introductions that I provide?
Yeah.
Do you know about this? Yeah.
I heard a bit about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best thing I've ever done, because when I'm doing an introduction that's not transactional in nature, there wasn't a fee paid for that introduction. The pressure's off, darling. The pressure is off. And if they don't get the second date and they say, gosh, how come I didn't get the second date? If they haven't written that whopper check to me, I have the permission to tell them really what's going on. Well, Mark, here's the deal. She was wondering why I didn't ask her any questions about her. She felt like it was a diatribe and it was the Mark show. And she had a great time hearing all about your life. But what she wanted to know is, did you have any interest in her? Did you have any curiosity about her? When you guys do that, we have a term for it. We call it peacocking. You're showing us all your pretty feathers. It's the number one complaint that we get from women about men on dating, is that they just talk the whole time. So I think that we have a much greater ability to really provide feedback if it's not part of a whopper fee contract. Does that make sense?
Well, it's a get to know you as well. It's such a personal business. You want to get to know the candidate. Otherwise, they're going to make your 6 months to a year living misery. If you don't like the candidate, you've got to like the candidate, because you've got to sell them to somebody. Really, that's the beauty of what matchmakers do. You provide, look, here's the thing. When people go on an online dating date, for one thing, they come at it in an eliminatory fashion, right? They're trying to eliminate candidates, narrow the pool down to the few that they want to date. But they'll generally also go out on a date, I think, with a less than positive attitude most of the time, because again, they're thinking this is going to be like all the others. So I think the beauty of the matchmaking relationship is that you do have a sell-in process. You get to say, look, this is somebody I think you'll enjoy, and here's why I like them for you. And this is what my advice for how to make the most of this date with this particular person, because you've talked to the other person and you know your candidate because you've heard their feedback. It's not necessarily you're giving feedback to them. That prep helps, the coaching helps, but hearing what they have to say about candidates, people tell you everything if you only observe, and you can observe.
People are always asking me what the most challenging part of matchmaking is. And women think that, I hear it 20 times every week, they think the hardest part of my job is finding quality men, because that's their experience when they're out there. They're not having the access to what they call quality men that they're expecting, hoping for, whatever. And that's not at all the hardest part of my job. I meet quality men every day. They fall in my lap. I get so excited. But what do you think the hardest part is if it's not finding you guys? It has to do with you guys, but what's the hardest part if it's not finding you?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
It's getting your yes. I mean, and here's the honest to good statistics. For every one yes that I will get from a guy that I'm hoping will meet my female client, because I'm one of the very few matchmakers matchmakers who will serve female clients proactively. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Why do matchmakers not want to take us girls on? What are they afraid of?
Women are more choosy. Women are harder to work with, apparently. From what I'm
Yes,
hearing.
they're afraid that we're going to be too fussy, too picky, too difficult to please. Those are the words.
Yeah.
And when we're not happy and we've spent a whole bunch of money, oh, you don't want to be in that room. Right? We can be horribly vindictive when we feel that we've been sold a bill of goods, when we feel like we signed up for something that didn't deliver. So I just am very transparent about it. So for every one yes that I get from a guy, I will get an average of 5, 6, 7 of these responses. It's always along the lines of, oh, Julie, thanks for thinking of me. Great to be in touch. She looks terrific. She's just not my cup of tea. Who else do you have? Who else?
Yeah.
And that's the introduction that I'm excited to make. And if I go to you and I've got Arena and I think she's amazing, but you are attracted to Asian women, or you're attracted to stick skinny gym rats, or I don't know, whatever your flavor of beauty is, there's nothing I can do to get you to say yes. And when you are inspired, oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do to get your eyes off of her. It's just amazing. And it's women hate that you guys are as visual as you are, but it's just biology. First off, it's biology. You have equipment that needs to work in order for the species to survive. Hello, it's not complicated. First order of business for every species is survival. Of all the species that have ever been on the planet, less than 1% is still here. Did you know that? It's amazing. You guys need to be, it's pretty hard to rape a guy, right? Yeah, you got to be at least participating at some level, or so there's the biology part, but then there's culture. And when you walk into a room with your beautiful wife, people are like, he must be special. He got that girl, right? And if you walk into an event, a gala or something, and the woman doesn't have your level of, shall we say, romantic market value, maybe she's, she's the girl who doesn't get selected. She's more in the dumpy frumpy category. She's not particularly attractive visually. Are people going to see you differently because you're with a woman who doesn't match your level of beauty, let's say? It's in there, right? So status is there, power is all of it. So for those reasons, men need to be attracted at least some threshold first. And you're all across the board. When I do my initial consultations with you guys, I charge for them. They're $295 an hour of his time, 2 hours of my time. We look at people together and I watch your face. So often it's a half a second when the decision is made. I learned better than to fight it. When I worked for my husband's company, I used to fight it. Oh, Mark, come on in. We're going to come in an hour early because I really want to go through. And I would pull 10 profiles and those were the ones. And you'd be like, nope, maybe. I just worked with it. So that's how it works in my world. If you give me the yes, then I get to go to Elaine and say, oh my gosh, I have an incredible guy for you. If you say no, I don't have the courage to tell her. I pitched you to 3 guys today. None of them said yes. You think I'm going to deliver a woman that message, right? So matchmaking so often is done in a blind date matchmaking kind of way. And there are people who will be best served that way. People whose photos won't help them, for example. People who are so selective that they're missing all their opportunities and they need to just hands off the wheel, allow the matchmaker to choose for once, right? But when I look at people who've hired matchmakers, the ones who are most unhappy about having made the choice are typically the ones who had blind date matchmaking options. And yet that's what's growing now. If you look at, what is it, Talkify? They don't show photos, right? Or do they? Maybe they do.
I think they do.
Talkify and 3-Day Rule have really been trying to create a mid-ground presence for people. Yeah. And I'm happy to see it because I've been watching all these years. Has anybody figured out how to bridge the gap successfully and profitably? And I haven't seen a couple has.
I mean, Talkify is interesting because there are hybrid services that will do online dating and they'll layer in some level of service. Well, let me tell you, ChristianFilipino.com is quite interesting. So they have an online dating element, but they have handholding. And so that's meant to encourage people along. That's what I call a premium international dating service. And there's a lot of trepidation and skepticism around the entire category. So consumers need some handholding with that particular niche of service. So that's an interesting example, ChristianFilipino.com. That's a shining example because they have high integrity. They actually do the job and they do a nice job. I know the owner well. When I think about other services, Talkify has done a decent job of scaling. There's also Vida Select, and Vida Select is very cheeky. So what Vida Select does is they pretend to be you on a dating app.
Yep. And Match.com and eHarmony and all these companies, I'm sure that they know.
Well, they've got to be very careful because the behavior of a Vida Select person would look rather like a scammer or a matchmaker. Dating apps don't really like matchmakers because it in some ways it undermines the promise of the service, unfortunately. I'd love to see matchmakers on dating apps, but they need to be clearly identified as matchmakers. There's a real kind of middle ground profile, not like headhunters, just in the same way that a headhunter would pay for a membership. I'd love to see matchmakers pay for a membership, get access. That would transform the industry.
You're a powerful guy. Make that happen. I would love to be able to be on the online sites as me, as who I am. No smoke, no mirrors, no faking, no pretending I'm the client, but actually me. And I haven't seen it done yet.
No, it's not been carved out. It's really not been carved out, which is unfortunate. But having said that, it's been done in the East. It's not been done in the West. It's been done with the likes of Zhena and Zhao Yan had in China, basically. I mean, there's some Asian examples which really are models for the West.
What I'm having so much fun doing is helping people do everything else first before they throw themselves up online, before they hire a matchmaker and just get exhausted with the whole process of online dating. And before we do that, let's learn how to engage out there in the world.
Really, yeah, that's super valuable.
Yeah, flirting skills, planning your own parties. How about we get really good at writing our profiles? All of these things first, and then take those skills into the way we're doing dating. People are bringing really bad attitudes to online dating, which is just creating more of a problem. And then the ghosting and the flaking and the disappearing has become the norm. Like people expect it. And that is just tragic. So I've been enjoying bringing it back to our local communities and my coaching clients who are in Milwaukee or in Portland or in San Diego or in the UK, all over the world, brightening up their local communities through the power of social engagement and helping people learn how to do that again. And when they've developed that, then guess what? Their online dating adventures go better. If they have a matchmaking introduction, they're more likely to have a second date, a third date, because they've been working on their skills. I think that's kind of what needs to happen. And perhaps with the online dating agencies, we can integrate more of these kinds of coaching solutions so that their experiences will be better online.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's a huge market for coaching. I think the industry is starting to open up with this concept. I mean, people are paying $10, $20, $30 a month to have a selection, but we're locking them up really with paradox of choice. It's important to be able to know how to choose what makes for a good date, what makes for a good experience. I mean, I think the ideal way to come at a date is with the interest of getting to know the other person and asking questions. So I actually partnered with one of my clients, Dating Through Curiosity. And so the whole point of Dating Through Curiosity is to train up online daters to come at dating with a different mindset of curiosity. Ask the right questions, learn about the other person, and putting the priority on that really helps change the dynamic of dating. So I think matchmakers do this as a matter of course. The first job to be done is to prepare your candidates for good quality dates. And the only way to do that is to go through dates and with candidates who are a good match. That's what you can deliver. The most impossible task for us to do it on online dating so far. But hopefully that will change in time, and hopefully there is more of an opportunity to partner with matchmakers around the world.
I'll check into Dating Through Curiosity because I love that. I'm at the point now after 34 years that I will not work with a matchmaking client who isn't growth oriented. Otherwise, we're just going to throw spaghetti up against the wall. We really need to know. I want to work with people who are curious about why the last 20 dates they went on were mostly one date wonders, right? Have you studied Dr. Mimi Winsberg's book, Speaking in Thumbs? It was my favorite from 2 years ago. Do you know that book?
No, but I'll check it out. That sounds good. Tell me more.
She's a psychiatrist. She's studied what happens with texting, like what can be revealed about us and other people and our culture through these little text bubbles. It is fascinating. And she did a lot of research into the algorithms with online dating. And I have to tell you, Mark, it's pretty alarming. The way the algorithms serve up the popular people, especially when your membership's getting close to being at the end, right? And all of a sudden there's this flood of interesting, good-looking, tall men and attractive women. They serve up the popular people because those are the people who keep people paying again and again. And the problem is because these people are being served up, well, they get fussy and picky more and more so over time. So, and I've seen it happen. Whenever I do my consultations, if you were my coaching client and we were doing one of those $295 consultations, I'm going to run a search in advance so we can look at people. And if you're only going for the three, what I call usual suspects, the women who get all the attention, or for a woman, we're doing the same consultation and they're only going for tall, dark, and handsome it guy, oh boy, I know I'm in trouble. Because if they're doing online dating at all, and just even if they're just going to events and out there in the world, women are drawn to that guy who's tall, dark, handsome, looks like he's accomplished, charismatic, all that. The same narcissistic qualities as the guy she just divorced, by the way, right? But those are the people who are getting all the attention. So they become more and more picky and fussy, and they start going younger and younger and younger. It's wild.
I think eHarmony did a good job with kind of harmonizing the playing field. Oh, harmony, there we go. But by and large, yeah, we have exacerbated the outlier effect. There's a certain small proportion of users who get an undue amount of attention. So really, a good way of thinking about any online dating platform is like economics. The product is the people. And so we do have to be careful about balancing things out. We know that certain users will help convert other users, but we have to be very careful with that because those users then get inundated and they leave because they're inundated. It's the opposite effect, which is one of the reasons that Bumble had a very nice position in the market some years ago until they just changed it so everybody can talk to everybody. What the Bumble effect had, I think, is that it attracted the women that were inundated away from Tinder. So it's a very clever strategy. If you think about it from the perspective of somebody who is getting inundated on Tinder, what do? Take control, go somewhere that you're empowered. And that was, and to some extent is, Bumble.
Why did
so
Bumble
I think that's the
change their
genius.
model? Aren't they going to lose all the women in changing the model because women don't want to be inundated? Now they're going to be?
Look, some women didn't like that. Some women wanted to be approached. So you've got a mass of women on Bumble. In some ways, they're losing their USP, but they've got enough of a brand now. It's rather like Facebook opening up. Facebook opened up from education, Harvard, etc., to the masses. It's like now Bumble is opening up that effect. I think that was a good way to penetrate the market. It was a good way to get attention, have a clear USP. But ultimately, it was inevitable that they would have to open up as they scale. It's actually a limiting factor now for them.
It's really fascinating. And then you acquired matchmaker.com. Can we talk about that?
Yes, that was incredible. I tracked it for 10 years. I thought it'd be useful for one of my clients, and it ended up in private auction. And I offered it to a couple of my clients, and they said no, they didn't really want to put the money into it. They had their brands, they were happy with what they had. And so basically, I could not stand for it to be thrown into the back of a cupboard of a certain behemoth dating company. I know they've got some great domains, and I was pretty sure that they were bidding on it. So there was a buy it now option on it, and it got to the price point. It was like, if it goes much further, it's definitely beyond the possibility of buying it. And so I had a chat with Raina. She said, shall we do it? It's a bit crazy, isn't it? Damn it, let's do it. So yes, we bought it. And really, it was because I couldn't bear for this particular property to be not used correctly or not used. So we're on a bit of a budget with it, to say the least, but we are determined to use it correctly and do the right thing with it. And that's what's going to happen.
Well, it's definitely a fascinating industry. Stick around because you're the guy who keeps your finger on the pulse for all of us. And what's your hope for the future? Before I let you go, like if you look into the future, what's your hope that online dating will become, or maybe the merging of matchmaking and online dating? What do you think it'll look like 5 years from now?
Well, what I hope will happen is that we'll, as an industry, recognize there are things that we cannot know, and there are things that we should know. And we have the capability to know because we have the data sets, we have the people, we have the data sets. I think the only way to unlock the potential of this industry is to team up with academics, top flight academics who desperately want to get their mittens onto our data. We've got masses of data. They've got know-how and insights. If we will only enable surveyability and open up, the ability to see what's going on behind the curtains. So there's a way to do that protects the privacy of users. But 100%, there's a mass of top flight academics and their PhD candidates and their master's candidates that would love to be able to study online dating. And that is something that I've not been successful in gluing these two groups together yet, but I'm determined to be successful. In fact, I was just thinking about it. I've got an offer on the table now with a top flight university with a top flight professor who's so interested in online dating in the behavioral field that is willing to open up his university, open up a room so that we can have CEOs of dating companies come in. You know what I'm going to do is say, you can come to this, come and talk with each other, come and talk to the professor, but to walk through the door, you've got to commit to doing a survey. So
what do they have
to commit to running surveys and opening up data sets to allow these academics in the aggregate to review for behaviors and to test for interventions. We're doing intervention. We do it all the time with A/B tests. We just call it something else. They do an intervention. It's essentially an A/B test, an RCT, random my
fascinating.
skill test.
I sort of have been watching, the matchmakers who charge just whopper fees. When I get profiles from them, they're trying to match their client. They're asking me if I have any candidates. They have like 3 words on them. It's like the more information you provide on a profile, the more likely the person who receives that profile is going to find something on it that's going to cause them to say no. So
Exactly, yes.
they reveal less and less and less. So the more you pay, the less is on your profile. It's the strangest thing. There's certain things I don't reveal on profiles. I don't
Yeah.
reveal age. And it's so funny. I'll share a profile with you and you're like, oh, Elena looks great, Julie. How old is she? Oh,
Yeah.
thanks for
Right. Yeah.
asking, Mark. You know how I don't reveal your age on your profile? Oh, I love that. That's really good, Julie. I love that. Well, guess what? I'm not revealing hers either. And the reason I
Good.
started doing that probably 15 years ago is because of the number of times that I would just, a tear would shed down my cheek if, somebody said no because of a couple of years. But there's an interesting thing that's happening today. The women over 50, 55, 60, they are asking me for 5 to 7 years younger, up to maybe 5 years older. They're skewing younger. The percentage of men in 39,000 records that have crossed my desk in the last 22 years, what percentage of men would you say have checked the box even 1 year older than they are?
Yeah, shockingly low. If it's 10%, that's as much as it is.
It's less than 5%.
Yeah.
It's a way in which we're looking for, as women, an unnatural match. The same way that a woman who's in a really strong position financially wants to be with her equal, a guy who's at her level, not just financially, but in terms of personal growth and development and spirituality and all these other things. And the problem is that the guy she's hoping to be with that strong net worth,
That's, I think, what will crack the door.
he's never asking me if he's contemporary, less than 5%. They're always going younger. And I asked one guy the other day, so how come you're so focused on age? Why do you think I made all this money so that I could do that? Right? It's just hilarious. So we have natural matches and unnatural matches. And very often I find the matches that stick to be on the fringes of people's preference zone, right?
You know what might happen? In the future, we might not define ourselves by actual age, but biological age. There's a fellow, Brian Johnson, who's got the Rejuvenation Athletics. And basically what he has everybody do is send in for a genetic test, which is about $750. It's quite expensive, but it's a genetic test so you can see your real age and your rate of aging. And I think that's the truth of it. Just looking at the actual chronological age is not the real tell. People are 50 but really 60. Other people are 50 but really 40, 35 even.
And my mother-in-law was young into her 90s. So you just don't know. So that's a really beautiful thing. The other, I don't reveal height quite often on profiles. I don't want a guy to be vetoed because of an inch or two, knowing that the guy who is 6 feet or taller, hello, that's 13% of the population. Women think it's like 50%. It's not. Well, that guy's getting picked all the time because the attractive women get so much attention that they begin filtering, and they filter for education, and they filter for income, and they filter for height, and they filter whatever else they're filtering for. And the same 3 guys get picked all day long. And it's really, really horrific. So that's why I don't want people to judge too quickly. And then when we have an introduction, I don't reveal last names. I don't want them Googled. I recommend that women have a Google Voice number, or that they use the Burner app or something, so that they won't be Googled and a guy won't see the value of her home and, her
God. Really? Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's so creepy. So all these things we need to do now to really curate an introduction without the first impression being something that's secondary and not even important. I want values, lifestyle, shared passions, those things to be the reason why people are getting together, not because he's 6'1" instead of 5'11", for goodness sake.
Yeah.
So any last words, anything you want to say to my crowd?
I think the meaning of love is wanting to spend time with somebody. That's a great way to think about it. It's the way I think about it, and I can't spend enough time with my wife.
Oh,
that's a good way to think about it. That's the real acid test.
I'm so glad that you have each other, and thank you for all that you do for our industry. And you guys listening, you go out there and transform me 2 weeks for yourselves. Thanks for being here.